We are now live on here. Perfect. So I'm live on my YouTube channel right now. Chris and I have a YouTube channel together for our podcast. So I am right now about to break down. Hi guys, if you're in here, I'm on live feed on TikTok as well as right here. I am going to break down all 19 pages of the affidavit. I have the link in my bio. So if you go to the link in my bio, it's like the first thing that's on my website, and I am live now. Whatever questions you have, I'm going to answer, and it's beginning right now. So I will see you guys in there, and I cannot wait. I'm going right now. It's live right now. I'm like talking to y'all, and it's live. Bye. Okay. And my everything's messed up. I'm not used to having like this sort of camera, so don't judge it. Don't. Oh no, I just messed it up. It's okay though, guys. It's okay. Let me connect the chat. Let me connect the chat. Okay, and if you're trying to chat, I think it's saying like subscribers only. I'm gonna try. I don't know if I could change that, but all you have to do is click subscribe. So I hope that this this lighting and everything is not too shitty. I'm not using my podcast camera or my mic right now, and it's a mess. Let's not look at that. But we're about to break down all 19 pages of this affidavit. So I'm really excited. So let's get it started. Let's see. You guys, it's so exciting. Okay, this is much better. I just ruined my whole entire backdrop, so let's not look at that. And I am pulling up the affidavit right now. Super exciting. Okay, let's go back to page 1. You guys, when I'm telling you, I have read this thing 6 million times. Well, I'm so glad you joined us, and it's like insane each time that I read it, I'm telling you. Okay, so I'm going to move this stuff all around so I could kind of see you guys and see. I definitely think Burger Boy wanted to make it look like they're roommates, but also another part of me is just not like shit is not adding up. And I don't feel comfortable essentially, I don't even know how to explain it. I don't feel comfortable bringing up stuff about the roommates, whether it's like positive or negative on TikTok, because it's a different crowd. And a lot of things are not adding up. Why did they not call? Maybe I should shut up. Why did they not call the police? But there's so many things that could have happened. And there's so many things in here that I'm also going to break down whenever we begin. So we can begin right now. Okay. And I'm really just like making this fit my page right now. So I could see you guys, I could see the chat, and I could see the affidavit, because that's kind of important right now, right? Okay, page 1. And you guys, I just want to remind you, if you are sitting here and you're like, what the F? Like, why don't we know so much? This is a warrant for Bryan's arrest. All they needed in here was enough information to get the warrant to say that he was the one that did it. So when you're like, wow, this doesn't even feel like the full story, it's not. Okay. And this is a summarization, but I'm going to go through each paragraph. So, vape break. I'm going to read some of it, break it down. On November 13th, 2022, at approximately 4 p.m., Moscow Police Department, Sergeant Blaker, and I responded to 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho. The King Road residence is what we call it. When they got there, the forensic team was on scene and preparing to begin processing the scene. So they get there to do the walkthrough and to make this document or to make notes of the document. And the crime scene processing team was already there. One of the initial officers that were there walked through with Sergeant Blaker. So, So Sergeant Blaker is the guy, and I believe it's Smith. You get what I'm saying. Sergeant Blaker is who we're talking about. Officer Smith is one of the original responding officers. And I'm going to read your guys' comments, but I'm going to kind of get through each, and I want you to kind of ask questions on this specific thing. If you're not able to comment, I think it's like it says you have to subscribe to comment or something. I don't know. It said it at the top of my feed. So click subscribe. Okay. The two officer, the sergeant and the officer, they enter through the bottom floor door on the north side of the building. So in the front of the building, they walk through the front. Then they walked upstairs to the second floor. Officer Smith, the one that was originally on scene, walked him to Xana's room. They knew it was Xana's room because they saw her ID in there, her license, and they found her license in the room. So they were like, okay, that's how we know who this is, because they were able to look at her face, her body, and identify that that was her based on her ID. Just before the room, there's a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As he approached her room, he could see a body already from when he was not even in there yet. That was Xana's body. So she was closer to the door. She was laying on the floor. The wounds were edged weapons. You could tell it was edged weapons. He said just by looking at her body, he could already tell. This next sentence is about Ethan, and then they redacted a lot under it. So I'm going to tell you why I think they redacted this after I say it. Also in the room was a male identified as Ethan Chapin, deceased with wounds later determined. So when I read this, so let's break that down. After this, it's redacted, but it does say autopsy report in parentheses. Everything's redacted. So they don't even want to tell you in here how Ethan was found. And I have not talked about this on TikTok at all yet. That's wild to me. They say they saw Xana. They could tell it was an edged weapon wound first. And then when they go in to see Ethan, they want to redact the wounds on here. It could be redacted means they take it out of the document. It's no longer public documentation. Nobody can see this information. It's taken out, but it was in the original warrant. So people have seen it. The arresting officers, the judge had to approve it to get the warrant out for his arrest, but I know it's the autopsy report that follows because it says Chapin was also deceased with wounds later determined. So he couldn't even tell Ethan's wounds how they were, because Xana's was with an edged knife, as they did, and Ethan's they had to later determine with the autopsy report. And then it says, in parentheses, autopsy report provided by redacted. And I'm telling you, that's the first page, second page redacted, and then on the top of the third page it says, yeah, they'll probably use it in court for sure. Court medical examiner blank, dated December 15, 2020, and then it says to be caused by sharp force injuries. I don't know. Could be the same thing, couldn't, but I genuinely believe that they are describing each and every type of wound in that autopsy report, and they're going to try to trick Bryan into saying something. Okay. So now we're on page 3. The whole page 2 was redacted. Okay. Yes, the document has redactions in it. They took out stuff that they don't want the public or anybody to know. So let's go on. I'm gonna go to the third page. So then after they see Xana and Ethan, they go up to the third floor. They have 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom on the third floor. One bedroom was Kaylee's, and he later learned that is where, and he says this right after, he says, I later learned from review of Officer Nunez's body camera that there was a dog in the room when Moscow police officers initially responded. The dog was still in Kaylee's room. The dog belonged to Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend. We already know that. And then Officer Smith pointed out that there was a small bathroom on the east side of the third floor. This bathroom shared a wall with Madison Mogen's room, which was on the southeast corner of the third floor. So that's just kind of telling you where everything is located, but the only thing that was in the room was, in Kaylee's room, was the dog. Okay? As he enters Maddie's bedroom, I could see two females in a single bed in the room. They were both deceased with visible stab wounds. Then they noticed the leather sheath of a knife. That was their key right there. So for me, I feel like, and I don't know about you guys, and you could tell me how you feel, but them seeing that, the leather sheath of the knife, they're like, bingo. I feel like they had to go in her room, Maddie and Kaylee's room first. Genuinely. I feel like they had to go in Maddie and Kaylee's room first, because you would take the thing off the knife, unless he saw Xana and Ethan did that, went up there, did that, and dropped it, and he was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Like, the dog's making way too much goddamn noise. Got to get the F up out of here. And that's why he didn't care about seeing the roommate that showed her face. But who knows, you know? So here's the next part. As part of the investigation, numerous interviews were conducted by Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police detectives, and FBI agents. 2 of the interviews included DM and BF, both of the roommates, right? The surviving roommates. They were all in the King Road residence at the time of the homicides and were roommates to the victims. BF's bedroom was located on the east side of the first floor of the King Road residence. So BF was the only person that had a bedroom on the first floor. That is so different from the freaking information that we had in the very beginning, okay? I can't believe it. So here's Here's page 3 since they redacted the second page. This is the shit that pisses me off that comes up next, because this is what is so weird to me. And we're going to have a discussion about this because this is like a lot of the roommates' testimonies. And this is a safe place here. We are not blaming anybody. We are thinking of all possible avenues. So this is where we're going to get into a lot of discussion. Okay. On November 12th, in the evening time, so in the nighttime, BF, the roommate that lives on the very first floor by herself, sees Ethan and Xana at the Sigma Chi, I'm not really sure how to say it, house of the Idaho University. So they had a party there, do we remember? She says she sees them at 1:45 a.m. Remember that. Ethan and Xana return to the King Road residence. BF also stated, the first floor roommate, surviving roommate, that Chapin did not live in the King Road residence, but he was a guest of Xana. So we knew that. Ethan didn't live there. He was just going to be with his girlfriend. Okay. Kaylee and Maddie were at the local bar. We know that. They were seen at the Corner Club between 10 and 1:30 a.m. At approximately 1:30 a.m., you could see them go to the grub truck. And then right after they left the grub truck, they went in with a private ride. And that person does not want to be identified. So they redacted that private party that gave him a ride. They took his name out. Okay. But they did talk to him. And he said, or she, we don't know, that the private party had them home by 1:56 a.m. So everybody in that house is saying that they were all home at 2 a.m. All 6 of them were at that house at 2 a.m. Now we're going to get to the roommate statements. DM and BF both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. This is with the exception of Xana, who ordered DoorDash, and she went outside and got it at 4 a.m. They also said that they spoke to the DoorDash driver, and that is all correct information, right? Now, that was the end of the first floor roommate. That was the end of what she had to say. She had nothing else to say in here that could provide evidence to Bryan's arrest. We don't know if she said more or if she said less or blah, blah, blah. That was it that could help in the arrest of Bryan, and that's why we have it right here. I don't know why they would want misinformation for as far as the location of the bedrooms. Maybe because the guy was still out there. They didn't know at the time of saying anything that if he was looking for her and, DM, and he just like walk right past her, whatever, or just like for her safety, her protection. They didn't want to know if he's still out there. He could, whatever. From my understanding, Bryan could see the redacted info because the lawyers and all of the officials have all of the redacted info. Everybody working directly, the victims, the victims and the defense team, everybody, they all have the redacted info because, it's the warrant for his arrest. So basically, this is what's handed to Bryan. Bryan got off the plane and they were like, here you go. We have a warrant for your arrest. He already knew that shit. He already knew it. And that could be it. Anya, I hope I'm saying your name right. She said, I think he didn't see Dylan and they didn't want him to know there was a witness. 1,000%. They didn't want their cards to be whatever. Because guess what? He could have been like, fuck, she knows what I look like. I'm gonna dye my hair. I'm gonna shave my bushy brows, as she said. You know? I'm gonna read a few of your comments. Do you think Bryan came in before DoorDash or afterwards? He came in afterwards, and I'm gonna explain why in a second, because it's in here why you know that he came in afterwards. Yeah, I'm always confused with like the third floor, like how people call it a basement. I live in Louisiana. We don't have basements. We live under sea level, so that would make sense. So let's go on to the next statement of DM. The surviving roommate that lived on the same floor as Xana was on the same floor as Xana, and she had the most to say. DM stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. DM stated that she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she said sounded like Kaylee playing with the dog. We're going to have a lot to say on this one, okay? In one of the upstairs bedrooms, DM said at 4 a.m. she woke up. She thought she heard Kaylee playing with her dog. A short time later, the surviving roommate, DM, that was on the second floor, said she heard what she thought Gonzalez say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." Here's the thing. The DoorDash driver at 4 a.m. was there. So Kaylee could have been like, somebody's here, because it was the DoorDash driver, like knocking, like, hey, like leaving your stuff by. But I'm sure the DoorDash driver probably was like able to say if he usually rings the doorbell or she rings the doorbell or knocks or does whatever. So there's someone here. You don't know if she was like, there's someone here. Like it was Bryan or it was just DoorDash because Kaylee ordered DoorDash. And this all fits because they showed her phone, Xana's phone. Xana ordered DoorDash. So Xana's phone shows her using the TikTok app at 4:12 a.m. So yeah, she was awake. She ordered DoorDash. She went and got it, went in her room at 4:12 a.m. DM stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. She then opened the door for a second time when she thought she heard crying coming from Xana's room. So she opens the door a second time. She's like, is that somebody crying? Like, whatever, right? Then she said she heard a male voice saying, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Now, this is where we're going to get into theories really quickly, okay? So I have a lot of theories on her hearing a male voice say, it's okay, I'm going to help you, after hearing Xana crying. Do we think that it's okay, I'm going to help you was Ethan? Because it seems as though Ethan was the first and then Xana was the very last to go out of those two. I think Ethan first, Xana last, who knows, right? Or, and this is where it's going to get really creepy, you guys, and I'm so sorry that I'm about to get really, really, really creepy. If you got chills, you're going to get it again. What if it was Bryan hearing her cry, being like, oh, like, I'm hurt, and he's like, it's okay, I'm going to help you, and he stabbed her again? What do we think about that? I mean, is that completely off the wall, or who knows? Or here's another theory. What if Bryan was had someone helping him, third party. And they were like, oh my God, like, what did you do? And they're like, it's okay, I'm going to help you. He's like, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Like, we got this. I'm going to help you do this. Trying to put it on them, like convincing that person it was them doing that. Yes. Thank you, Kenzie. She said it's possible he's scary psycho. He is, obviously. So those are my 3 theories, or I might have said 4 theories that I don't feel comfortable with sharing on TikTok, and I have more. But I think it could have been Bryan saying that. It's okay, I'm going to help you. Okay. So at 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road. So it's right across the street from their residence that they were all murdered, right? You can hear a distorted audio at 4:17 a.m. So let's go back. Xana was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. She got DoorDash at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. DoorDash. 4:12 scrolling on TikTok like the rest of us. 4:17 DM is clearly hearing right out of the thing, that's okay, I'm going to help you. And her crying coming from her room. If it was a female crying coming from her room, it was her. Okay, somebody, Brooke Jackson said, why did they say vehicle 1 in the affidavit? I believe they said vehicle 1 because that is how they, and we're going to get to that part of it, but that's how they have to like specify, because there could be another XYZ come up in this case. So they're not like Bryan's car, because at this point they don't know the car. So they just say like vehicle 1, suspect, like, you know, whatever. I think that's just like the correct terminology to use in an arrest warrant. Okay. So then DM stated she opens her door for a 3rd time. She hears the crying. She hears the crying from Xana's room. She opens the door, closes it, like, what the fuck? Okay. 3rd time, she hears crying again. Sees Bryan in black clothing and a mask covering right here. Okay, so we don't know if his head is like completely covered, whatever. But she sees Bryan with a mask at least covering his nose and mouth, walking towards her. She described him to be around 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past her, DM, the 2nd floor roommate, right next to Xana's room. And she said she was frozen shock. It was a frozen shock phase. Like she was just like, ah. So Bryan walks right past her. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door, and DM locks herself in the room after seeing him. She did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. She didn't state that she recognized the male. Bryan's 6 foot. Stephanie, Bryan is 6 foot. He wasn't hiding in the house, but we're going to get to that part. Sorry, I'm vaping, guys. I'm like getting a little bit. I got so emotional earlier. I was like, ugh. And then I cried my eyes out. You guys, if y'all listen to that court the court and them just like reading, they're like, this Xana, whatever, like on first degree murder and your sentence can be life to death. And I'm like, because you can hear the families crying. It's so sad. Okay. As part of the investigation, an extensive search, commonly referred in law enforcement as video canvass, was conducted in the area of King Road residence. So basically all this is, and this is like a huge thing, but I'm just gonna, like, it's a huge paragraph, I'm just gonna like simplify it. Basically, they did this thing where they went to every residence, every business in the area, and they were like, give me footage. Okay. So, and that happened on November 13th. So that, them saying that tells me they strategically posted that video that the gas station worker had when they had shit tons of evidence, you guys. They had shit tons of evidence. We're going to get into that. But they had this vehicle on so much video camera footage, the white Hyundai Elantra. Okay, a lot of people are asking me about where the room is, so let's go back and really think about, let's read it over. So, on that part, so we can all specify exactly where the room is. Okay, so he directed, so they went down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which he learned was Xana's. And then, so it seems like her room, yeah. If they're saying down the hallway, I think that just before this room, there's a bathroom door on the south of the hallway. So maybe it's like two different little hallways. So maybe they're like kind of perpendicular to each other. Okay, Natalie Harris. That's what I think too. Maybe thinking she was just being too paranoid. I have extreme anxiety and think things up. I totally get that. Okay, so let's go back. And we're going on to the next page. So they do the video canvas of all of the businesses in the area, all of the houses in the area that had camera footage. A review of the camera footage indicated that a white sedan, hereafter suspect vehicle 1, was observed traveling westbound on the 700 block of Indian Hills Drive in Moscow at 3:26 a.m. Then it's going to get really technical. 3:26 westbound on Steiner, 3:28 suspect vehicle 1 was not displaying a front license plate, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I think it might be in here or I read it somewhere else. I looked it up. You're supposed to have in Pennsylvania and Washington a front and back license plate. So in the King Road neighborhood, they saw that vehicle, suspect vehicle 1, starting at 3:29 a.m., ending at 4:20 a.m. They show suspect vehicle 1 make an initial 3 passes by that residence. He went past that house 3 times. 3 times. It says, based off of his experience, the cop writing this or the officer writing this, as a residential neighborhood, it's a residential neighborhood, and he was a patrol officer with very limited vehicles traveling in that area at these morning hours. When they went through all the video footage, there was only a few vehicles that passed down that time. But no, before the murders is when Tristan Crawford, I hope I'm saying that right. Before is when they saw it. This is at 3-something in the morning. Before he murdered all 4 of them, he passed by the house 3 times. Then the 4th time at 4:04 a.m., he was in the area and he was going eastbound down King Road. So he's going down their street, stopping and turning around in front of an apartment, then driving back westbound on King Road. Then he parks in front of their residence. So, like, do we think that he was, like, thinking about this? Like, shit, like, fuck, like, you know, like, all right, like, hyping himself up sort of thing. You know, like, he kept on driving down that road. Maybe driving at night and trying like a regular car doing daily life. Ooh, Jacqueline! Jacqueline Ryan said maybe he drove by again at 9 a.m. to look like he was innocent and trying to act like a regular car doing daily life, which we're about to get to in this. Okay. So suspect vehicle 1 is then seen departing. So he left at 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed. So first he drives around 3 times checking it out from like 3-something in the morning, like earlier in the 3-something, not even like 3:30, like 3:26, like whatever. Keeps driving past, then finally stops in front of their house, parks, gets out and goes, and then he's already leaving at 4:20 a.m. and he is hauling ass at 4:20 a.m. You guys, he literally did that shit so fast. He was there for a maximum of about, what was it? 4:04 a.m. So 4:04 a.m. is when he was driving up the street right before he parked. So let's say 4:05 a.m. and at 4:20, so 15 minutes. And like, let me just say this, 15 minutes and you murdered 4 people by yourself. What the fuck? I know people that take longer shits than that. Not to make a joke out of it. I'm like, really not. That sounds so fucking sketch to me, dude. And then like him saying that like, okay, did y'all arrest anybody else? I'm like, this guy's like, so he thinks so slick. Then we find out the timeline and I'm like, damn, 15 fucking minutes? Like pretty much we'll give him 16 minutes because the 4th time, approximately 4:04 a.m., he's seen driving eastbound on King Road and then stopping. So 4:04, he gets in there at 4:05 and then he's already driving by 4:20, less than 15 minutes, dude. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. And I was live earlier on TikTok and I was like, I would not be surprised if when we see this shit, we are all going to be like, what the fuck? And everybody was like, oh, like, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, we're going to all be like, what the fuck? And I'm like, but this is not going to be the first time that we're like, what the fuck? Then we get the affidavit out. I read it and I am just like, holy fuck. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, holy shit. 412 scrolling. Alyssa Delorto. Well, no, because 412 TikTok scrolling. Xana was TikTok scrolling. So even less than 15 minutes. But then that leads me to believe, did he go up to Kaylee and Maddie's room first? Because she heard the dog. DM heard the dog around 4 a.m. And she thought that she was playing with the dog around 4 a.m. She didn't have the exact time. Okay, so let's go back. So then they see him traveling at 4:20 a.m., high rate of speed. Then they keep on looking at camera footage. They're seeing him all over the neighborhood, okay? He basically drives and they're listing out like names because they have to in here of streets and whatnot, but they see him proceed to Whitman County, Washington. Eventually, the road leads to Pullman, Washington. Pullman, Washington is where he was going to school and he lived, right? Tristan Crawford, and I hope I'm saying your name right. I think he could be a serial killer, but who knows? I don't know. This was insane for him to do it that quick. Okay. So they give the footage to somebody that has 35 years of experience in the FBI, and he was like, okay, it's either a 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. And so that happened on like pretty much immediately on November 13th. And then no, the next couple days. So they go to Washington State University because at this point FBI is involved because he goes to Pullman, Washington. So you know how we're all like, oh wow, the FBI is involved, blah blah blah. That's because he went to another state. FBI gets involved. What's in Pullman, Washington? WSU, where Bryan went to school. They go there and they pull the camera footage. You could see his vehicle on 5 different cameras at WSU in their surveillance cameras where he went to school at 2:44 a.m. on November 13th. So this is before the murders happened. He was at his school 2:44 a.m. before the murders happened. So he had to have been by his school, WSU. Then he drove, went all around. Okay, so they show him going towards where the murders occurred at 2:53 a.m. So all of this timeline would add up. He was at WSU, drove around. They have him on 5 different camera footages. Went there. They see the exact locations, and I could post the little tracks on TikTok or Instagram, whatever you guys want me to. They did not get the license plate from the vehicle. And Jasmine, there has to be more to it. Like, what does he have for defense? I'm so curious. There's no way this guy took out 4 people knowing that Idaho has the death penalty and leaving all the evidence behind. I have a lot to say about that, but I'm going to continue on here because there's not much left. So before the murders, he was at WSU. After the murders, he went back to WSU. And then at 5:27 a.m., they saw him traveling northbound on Stadium Way, right? So this is just going to be a bunch of whatever. On November 25th, MPD asked law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for a white Elantra in the area. So it was all law enforcement at this time asked to be looking for a white Elantra. As a result to this, a police officer at WSU found a white Elantra that was Bryan Kohberger's at WSU. So they originally just asked law enforcement to look out. A law enforcement officer in Washington said, "Oh, I found one at WSU." That was like a click in their brain. Like, we saw a white Elantra at WSU before and after the murders. Looks like the same one. We have them on a shitload of cameras. And then now you're reporting that you see that you have one and it was parked at WSU. His car was registered at WSU as a student, I'm guessing, for a parking pass, I'm sure. And that gave them the apartment complex because they were able to pull his apartment complex because he's a student there. So he had to have an address listed there, right? Do you think it sounds like he drove towards another Idaho town after returning back to his apartment? From Danielle Goger. I think he just was like fuck and like driving like around like crazy, and then finally was like, I don't know what to do, and then went to back to where he was at WSU. So he might have, because there's like a little bit of a gap and it's not that far. Like if he was speeding at 4:20 a.m. and then they caught him on cameras at 5 something a.m., he was somewhere else. And I genuinely believe that they have you guys, I think they're going to have the murder weapon, or they already have it, because if they have that much camera footage, they could have continued to do the footage, and they have to have the murder weapon because he went somewhere during that time frame, in my opinion. I mean, what do you guys think? It's a bit of a gap. It's not that far from each other. It's just like it's less than I don't think a 30-minute drive or something. I think okay, so Danielle, do you think he dropped the weapon on that drive? Is what I was possibly suspecting when I read it. For sure he could have, but if he's that psycho, he might have been like thought he was good. And then maybe he was freaking out. Oh my God, you guys. Okay, what if he was freaking out, driving around the parking lot, literally being like, fuck, where is the casing for his gun? And that's why he went back at 9 in the morning. Oh my God, you guys. Okay, let's keep going. We're almost done because I have so much to say. Okay. They find out that it's Bryan. And how do they confirm it's Bryan in that car and not just whatever registered? They pulled him over in August. The cop pulled him over, got his license, looked at his license, was like, Bryan, ran his license in his car. There's a documentation of the stop. So they knew it was Bryan. At the stop, pinged his cell phone at that stop from August. They pinged his cell phone from August. And they were like, okay, Bryan. Because they pinged him again. He had AT&T, by the way. Yeah, AT&T number. Pinged it again. Found him at all the places that he said he was. And that just goes to tell me, if they were able to ping his cell phone in all these places, if he did drop the weapon at some point, you bet your ass they know exactly where he maybe would have went, like, during that time to drop the weapon. Okay, so Pennsylvania, he had a Pennsylvania license plate. They don't require a front one. I'm looking at this now. But on November 18th, so 5 days later, after this murder, he goes and gets a new license plate. And they're requiring him to have like a front and back license plate, right? Then they start pinging his license plate after that because they're just like watching him at this point. You know how when you're driving and they have those little like flashing cameras and it's like scanning your license plate? Maybe they have them way more where I'm from because the crime is really bad, but it scans your license plate and shit like that. Or like traffic cameras that have like the little camera thing to see if you're running a light when a cop's not there, like that. They were able to ping his license plate all the way through to when he got to like, what was it? Colorado, but I don't want to make it up. Yes, Colorado. And then they saw him in Indiana. This is just saying like what he did like in school. Take warrants to. Okay, so then they get warrants for his cell phone, right? And they're able to ping him from everywhere. So he's been having that phone. Went to class the next day. How does that affect the time frame of him going back the next morning? What if he did go back and and did go and look for it, but couldn't find it, and that's why the front door was open. I also think that people who do this have tendency to return to the scene. They absolutely do. Alyssa Delorto said, I also think that people who do this have a tendency to return to the scene, or he wanted to see if there was anything going on, like police presence. 1000%. People that do this kind of shit, 1000%. You could look it up. They love to return to the scene, almost like gloat in like what they did. Yes, Jennifer. I was saying, I just was like, oh my God. I'm like, what if he went back to get the shades? Because he like, that's why he's driving around. Anyways, on December 23rd, he applied for and was granted a search warrant for historical phone records. So he got the phone records from AT&T, and they had cell site information on them. So then when they got the cellular analysis information, they brought it to the FBI, of course. Include 6 years on Okay, so on November 13th at 2:42 a.m., so the day that this happened, he was utilizing cellular services at an apartment, and it's his apartment on Pullman, Washington. And so it just, everything goes together. So they knew he was using it there. They knew he left. They knew where he was driving all the hours of the night, like through the next day. They knew exactly everything. All right. Okay, Amy Ann Cox. I have two theories. First, I believe she was broken up with the boyfriend. He found out and tried to hook up with her, exchanged numbers. She wasn't interested in it, ticked him off, and then bam. They did not state how he got into the residence. I see a lot of people asking, how did he get into the residence? They did not state that. All of this is just saying, like, all these next pages are just saying everything is consistent, that he was the one that did it, from all of his pings, from everything that he did, from when he arrived home to when he left home, to when he was at WSU, to when he was at the King residence, to when he was driving through the neighborhoods, to when he passed the King Road residence multiple times. Everything goes together. They're just building evidence at this point. This is not a story about everything that happened. This is a story of how Bryan definitely did something, or did this, or did all of it on his own or with somebody else, and we need to get a warrant out for his arrest, and they need as much information there just about Bryan as possible. So I know people are pissed about the whole roommate situation, and hopefully we get answers for that. But then on page 15, they have on December 23rd, I was granted a search warrant. Kohberger's historical, his stuff, basically, what it's going to say, it's going to be complicated. But on December 23rd, they got a search warrant to see, like, if he was stalking any of the victims prior to this. Okay. So they got a warrant being like, we want to basically know if he was ever stalking these people, watching these people, like whatever, like we want to see all of his pings. He visited, or not visited, but drove by that house and was pinged by that house 12 times prior to them being murdered. prior to him being murdered, and he lives in the state over, goes to school in the state over, everything like that. He was pinged at that house 12 times. What does that mean? Did he know somebody there? Did he just see them around town? Was he just stalking them? What the fuck was it? But he was seen going there 12 different times. Let me see if they have. They don't say what days. It says occurred in late evening or early morning hours of their respective days. So it was either really early in the morning or really late at night, but they didn't say what days. They just said of the respective days, it was either really early in the morning, really late at night, and he was there 12 different times. They pinged, okay, so Tristan Crawford, why did he get pinged in August at the traffic stop? They pinged him at that traffic stop to determine that the main driver of this vehicle was Bryan, because he originally had plates in Pennsylvania still. He didn't change his plates until 5 days after he murdered all of these people. So they were like, let's make sure we are confirming who the driver is, because the only reason they know who the driver really was because he was a student at WSU, and that vehicle was registered for the, I'm guessing, student parking under his name. Thank you, Ryan Bridges. 12 times between June and November 12th. We don't know if that was like all in November. We don't know if that started in June. We have no idea. Okay, so we do know one of the dates. That is on August 21st. And it was between 10:34 and 11:35 because he was stopped by a deputy. And that's when he was stopped. He was stopped by a deputy on that day. I'm going through because there's a lot of like little maps and everything. And this is going to be the last page. And then we're going to really like discuss. So after that, his phone was pinged around 5:32 and 5:36. He utilized cellular resources that provided coverage to Indiana, which would make sense because he was heading out. On December 27th, Pennsylvania agents went in his family's trash can because he was already there. Got evidence, sent it to the Idaho State Lab for testing. On November 28th, the Idaho State Lab reported that the DNA that they got out of the trash and the DNA they got off of the gun sheath, like the gun holder, basically, that sort of thing, identified a male as not being excluded as the biological father of the suspect profile. So the DNA on his knife and his dad's DNA on a piece of garbage matched at an at least rate of 99.9998%. Could it be wrong in the male population to be excluded of the probability of being the suspect's father that held that knife, or at least held the knife sheath? Based on the information, I am requesting an arrest warrant to be issued for Bryan C. Kohberger, date of birth 11/21/94, for burglary at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, for 4 counts of murder in the first degree for the murders of Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. And that is the fucking breakdown of the 19-page affidavit. And it is telling and not. So what questions do we have? So they pinned him. Okay, Tristan. So they pinged him recently and could see all the way back to August. They had to get a search warrant for that to go all the way back to August. I'm sure they went further back than that, but they had to get a search warrant to go all the way back to August. Odelia, I hope I'm saying that right. Do you think he was outside to make sure no one else was going that home or leaving after the DoorDash? He went in. I think that he was definitely like circling to make sure they weren't like leaving and coming back sort of deal. Oop. I'm just keep on reading. Anya, I wonder if his parents knew, like he had to have some sort of abnormal behavior as a child. A lot of the times when there's murderers like this, they have a fucked up childhood. But you know what? Some parents are really toxic and they don't even realize that they're giving their kid a fucked up childhood. So, okay, so Devin Gibson, I wonder why he was so messy with it. It doesn't seem like he tried to hide anything. I think that he was in a very manic state. I think he's already a narcissist. I think he already thinks he knows every little fucking thing. So going in there, he was like, oh, I'm good. And like doing all this shit. And honestly, he does have a good defense. If he doesn't plead guilty and just say, yeah, I did it, he's got a pretty good defense. Because he could literally be like, he could say a lot. They could say a lot. They can't prove. They really need that murder weapon, and I hope they have the murder weapon. And I hope, and maybe I'm just like crazy thinking that they're gonna let this trial play out a little bit, and they're gonna be like, but what about this bitch? And have the murder weapon. Or possibly know where he purchased it from, because he had to purchase it from somewhere. He didn't find it on the side of the road. He had to buy it from somewhere. They've got to be looking for him they probably looked up anywhere that they were able to find that murder weapon. Or if somebody reported one stolen or whatever the fuck it might be, and they're going to dig into that regardless. Okay. Odelia, if he left through the back door, how did B not hear the door open? We don't know, because B, she didn't say anything. Like, she's really not like in this at all, but it's probably because whatever she had to say didn't help the investigation on arresting him in the first place. Yeah, Nancy L., the roommates are going to get cross-examined on the trial and why they waited so long to call 911. Yes, but also they're going to be so trained on what to say in that cross-examination. And I think there is way fucking more to the story. It's just not in here. This is Bryan's story in this arrest warrant. This isn't anybody else's story. So they may know everything already, and they're like, oh, well, they're not going to get anything from this because this is what happened, you know? And so this is just, even if anything, she could, there could be so much more to it than just, oh, he walked past me and like let me go. She just had to say, like, I saw him and this is what he looked like, and he went towards the door, and that could, like, shit could have been not left into here. Let me see. I wouldn't have been going to sleep after seeing someone in my house. Yeah, same. Even if you're like hearing crying from up here, screaming from up here, hearing a dog bark right here, you could say whatever you want. But let me tell you this, she is underage. Maybe she was fucked up, and was like, oh my God, like, I don't want to call the police. Like, I'm going to get in trouble for being drunk or like something like that, which is still fucked up. Like, you're a fucked up person if that's how you think. But like, you know what I'm saying? Tristan Crawford. So do you think that it's possible for the times of the 911 call to be wrong? Because surely someone's seen that mess in that house before 12. Yes, because law enforcement and FBI agents have been putting out false information this whole time. And I know I got shit on TikTok, and y'all are mostly probably here from TikTok. I got shit on a lot for saying that. Yes, they could have been putting out the wrong time, being like, oh, they didn't see him until this time, because they were protecting her. They protected her and saying they were both on the first floor. Tamid Kamruz. I really don't want to butcher your guys' names. I'm like really bad. Do you reckon he will confess guilty now next week? As I don't think he realized how much evidence there is. The phone signal gives it away too much to me, in my opinion. I don't see what defense he really has. The phone signal is really hard to prove, guys. It is really hard to prove, okay? And let me tell you why. He could be like, I was just there and like visiting, and then this shit happened and blah blah blah. Like he could be like, oh, I was around the blah blah blah, and like somebody tried to rob me and they took my knife off of me, and like there's so much shit he could say. Like he I don't know. They can't prove unless they have DNA evidence like on their bodies and everything like that. There's so much that they're gonna have to fight back. Alyssa Delorto, is there a time that the 911 call was made? They're saying it was 8 hours later. Ryan Bridges, he could have purchased that at a military surplus store for sure, because it had a USMC on it. So for sure. Daisy Stokes, what do you think the roommates didn't hear? Also, do you believe he still thinks he will get found not guilty? I'm not saying that the roommate that was on the first floor didn't hear anything, but what I'm saying is that I think that D, the roommate that was on the same floor as Xana, heard that stuff and knew what time she heard it, and she also saw him, and that was really like what was the better defense for her. And D, like, she didn't see anything, so like she could have been like, oh, I heard whatever, but like we already, like, I didn't think anything of it. So they were like, well, it's pointless to put it in here, right? And she'd be like, I didn't know what time it was who woke me up. Okay, Bridie Shastani, I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know, if I lived with 4 girls and you hear some crazy sound, especially after a night out, she could have honestly thought the boyfriend and girlfriend were fighting or drunk playing around. Yes, definitely could have happened. It was just a lot of like back and forth. Like she heard cries from Xana's room. She heard like this, that, the other from Kaylee and Maddie. She heard the dog. Like, you never know. Okay, Jennifer, they got his DNA at the scene. Did you see his hands in the police video stop? Yes. And I could tell you this much. They were not giving a shit about his hands in the DNA. I mean, in the police stop. They didn't care about his hands. They were just saying that I guarantee you they pulled him over because they were hoping that he was going to drive off and fleeing from an officer because they knew it was him. And then they were going to be able to put him in custody because they did not have a warrant yet for his arrest, but they pretty much knew it was him. So they're like, wait, maybe if we spook him out enough, pulling him over 2 times within a matter of less than 10 minutes, 9 minutes, if he pulls off. But they're not going to say that because that would be basically like coercing him or trapping him, and that could be used against him. So they're not going to say that. Danielle, would they redact blood trail? The blood trail wouldn't really be in here. The blood trail would not be in here. So I think they left out the autopsy report for Ethan on purpose because they think it's like a little bit different than Xana's. But they would definitely redact the blood trail. They wouldn't put the blood trail in here. This is just a warrant for his arrest. The blood trail will be in way more evidence from the investigators hired by the victim's team. I'm sure, okay, Tristan, I'm sure both survivors were in the witness protection 100%. Lexi Randolph, she could have also just been scared and in shock and didn't want him to hear her. That's very true. Anya, what about the shoe print? What if they match the shoe print to shoes at his house? That's for sure. Okay, so Anya talked about the shoe print. So in here, they said they used some sort of technology and they found a shoe print that was like almost like the bottom of Vans, right? And they were able to find out that shoe print walked right past Dee's door on his way out when she saw him going through the sliding glass door. So when they searched his house, if they found the Vans, that's also something that they can use in evidence, physical evidence. But the defense could be, how many fucking people wear Vans? You know, and they're going to say, this many people wear Vans, you know. I'm going to be honest. I really genuinely think that there could be a second person. Yes, the trial is going to be in a week and I will get on TikTok and I will post about that. And Kenzie said he probably disposed of the shoes. Yes, or burned them. I honestly thought that his vehicle would have been burned by now, but Alyssa Delorto, everyone and their mother wears Vans. It's me. I wear them every day, even to work as a nurse. Feel that. I don't wear like a lot of Vans. I do have some different like types of Vans, not like the typical whatever, but the typical Vans make me feel like my feet look big. So he was there, yeah, Devin Gibson. So he was there from 412 to 420. Yeah. Which is crazy because you could do that in that short of time unless they know of another person that was there for sure. And if not, if somebody else was there, Bryan's going to out their ass. Before he goes to jail and does all that, he's going to out their ass and he will throw them under the bus. Yeah, they took his car already. And let me tell you, they took his car and they're going to find so much information from his vehicle. So much. You cannot clean a vehicle enough to get all of that out. Even if he did like clean the shit out of his car, bleach the shit out of his car, do whatever from his car, if they find like any sort of fiber from his vehicle, whether it be from the seat cushions, whether it be from the floorboard, anything in his vehicle from the house or in the house from his vehicle, which they will, and they probably have, they can't clean it out. I've already like researched this enough times, you guys, in the past couple of years. They cannot clean it out. They will find it, especially with the FBI involved. Tori said, do we know if there was a blood trail? How did he get out without any bloody clothes? We don't know if there's a blood trail, but that's not because it wasn't. That's not saying there wasn't. It was just not in here because they're not going to put all of their they're not going to put all of their evidence in here. They were just looking for an arrest warrant. So in this arrest warrant, they just basically had to be like, this is how we know it's the guy. Please let us arrest him and give us the warrant and hand it to a judge and get the judge to sign it. As soon as the judge signed it, they were good. They were going to leave as much information out of here as possible just to get that warrant, but still to have a case. Yes, Danielle, I think he really did. Okay, guys, I am going to let you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I am going to put this stream up on here for anybody else that wants to rewatch, and I really appreciate every single one of you guys. I'm going to get on TikTok. DM me there. Follow Chris, my co-host for this, and I really appreciate you guys, and I hope I did a good job of explaining.